Okay, so today we're going deep on diamonds.
Ooh, diamonds.
I mean, they really are fascinating, right? They're like this ultimate symbol of luxury and love and just like high status.
Yeah, that's the image, isn't it? It's like so ingrained in our culture. Like when you think of success,
Yeah.
think of diamonds.
Right. And what's wild is like what we found digging into all the research for this is that the story of diamonds, it's not exactly what we think. It's way more complicated and like kind of messed up, honestly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a whole lot more to it than just sparkle.
Exactly. So what we're going to do today is like peel back all those layers.
Yeah.
Starting from like the very beginning.
Like, where do these things even come from?
Yeah. And how do they become like the symbol they are today?
Well, the journey starts in South Africa, actually.
Oh, right. With like the diamond rush and all that.
Exactly. In the late 1800s, there were these huge diamond discoveries there.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just like a few diamonds, it was tons of them.
Which is kind of crazy, right? Because we think of diamonds as being like so rare.
That's the thing. It really challenged the whole idea of diamond rarity and value, because up until then, diamonds were mostly found in like riverbeds in India and Brazil.
Yeah, just scattered around and hard to find.
Right, but in South Africa, they found them in these massive volcanic deposits called kimberlite. It was a total game changer.
Okay, so like supply and demand, right?
Like,
If there's suddenly a ton more diamonds around,
price should plummet.
but it didn't. So how did that happen?
Well, that's where things get interesting. Enter Cecil Rhodes.
Ah, the infamous Cecil Rhodes.
This guy was ambitious, to say the least. He arrives in South Africa as a young man from England. He wanted to be part of the British elite.
And he saw diamonds as his ticket to get there.
Absolutely. He initially tried cotton farming with his brother Herbert.
Oh, so diamonds weren't his first hustle?
Nope. But he was actually really successful with the cotton, which gave him the capital to get into diamonds when the opportunity arose.
So he sees the diamond rush happening and jumps in.
And it wasn't just about getting rich for him. It was about power, too. He quickly starts buying up claims on the De Beers farm.
Which is kind of ironic, right? Because the brothers who own the farm, they actually wanted out of the diamond business.
They called it an evil industry.
Wow. And Rhodes just waltzes in and like takes over.
Well, he was ruthless. He believed in British superiority and exploited the local workforce, paying them next to nothing and making them work in dangerous conditions.
So not exactly an ethical businessman.
Not at all. But he was incredibly clever, too. He realized that water was essential for mining.
Oh, right. To wash away the dirt and stuff.
Exactly. So he bought the only reliable water pump in the area and charged other mine owners a fortune to use it.
So he's like creating a monopoly right from the start.
Exactly. And using those profits, he kept buying up more and more claims until eventually he controlled the whole De Beers mine.
Wow. So this is like 1888, right? And he forms De Beers Diamond Mining Company.
Named after the brothers who wanted nothing to do with the industry.
It's almost like a slap in the face.
Right. But Rhodes didn't stop there. There was another big player in the game, Barney Barnado.
Who was he?
He controlled the Kimberley mine, which was producing some of the highest quality diamonds at the time.
So Rhodes needs to take him out to really control the market.
Exactly. And he did it in a very sneaky way. You see, Rhodes was good at playing the social game. He had connections to powerful bankers like Nathan Rothschild.
And Barnado didn't.
Not really. He was more of a self-made man. So Rhodes uses these connections to secure funding and secretly buys up a huge chunk of Barnado's company.
So it's like a hostile takeover.
Basically. By the time Barnado realized what was happening, it was too late. Rhodes forced a merger and created De Beers Consolidated Mines.
So now he's got a near total monopoly on South African diamond production.
And it gets worse. He uses his wealth to enter politics, becomes prime minister of the Cape Colony.
Oh, so now he can like influence laws to benefit his business.
Exactly. He implements things like the Hut tax, which basically forces black South Africans to work in his mines to pay the tax.
Wow, so he's not just controlling the diamond market, he's shaping the social and political landscape too.
Right. And these policies laid the foundation for apartheid, which would have devastating consequences for South Africa.
It's a dark side of history that's directly tied to the diamond industry.
And it all stems from Cecil Rhodes' ambition and his belief in British supremacy. By the age of 35, he controlled over 90% of the world's diamond production.
Okay, so he's got all these diamonds now. What does he do with them?
He starts stockpiling. He creates a system where only a select few firms can buy diamonds from De Beers.
So he's controlling the supply to keep prices high.
Exactly. It's a classic cartel. He also forms his own private army to expand his mining operations into other parts of Africa, which eventually leads to the creation of Rhodesia.
Which we now know as Zimbabwe, Zambia.
Right. He was a powerful and controversial figure, to say the least.
Okay, so Rhodes dies in 1902, right? What happens to De Beers then?
Well, that's where Ernest Oppenheimer comes in. He was a German-born diamond merchant who really admired Rhodes.
And he saw an opportunity to take over.
Not exactly.
Huh.
He had a different vision for De Beers. He realized that simply trying to buy up every new diamond mine wasn't sustainable.
So what did he do?
He created the Central Selling Organization, or CSO.
What was that?
It was basically an umbrella organization that controlled the sale of diamonds from almost every producer in the world.
So instead of owning all the mines, they control the distribution.
Exactly. And they used a variety of tactics to get producers to sell through the CSO. They had government connections. They could flood the market with certain types of diamonds to lower prices.
So they could basically sabotage anyone who tried to operate outside their system.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
And if that didn't work, they would just blacklist merchants who traded with independent producers.
So it's like a global diamond mafia.
In a way, yeah. They were buying diamonds from everywhere. Communisters, Russia, India, newly discovered mines in Africa. They had their hands in everything.
Okay, but all those diamonds coming in, they must have had a huge stockpile.
They did. And it became a problem, especially when the Great Depression hit.
Because demand for luxury goods plummeted.
Exactly. People weren't buying diamonds anymore.
So what did they do?
Well, Ernest Oppenheimer's son, Harry, came up with a brilliant but kind of manipulative solution.
Oh, this is where the marketing magic comes in, right?
You got it. They launched this massive advertising campaign in America, specifically targeting engagement rings.
Because before that, diamonds weren't really associated with engagements.
Not really. They were more of a status symbol for the wealthy.
So how did they change that?
They used every trick in the book. They planted stories in newspapers about celebrities getting engaged with diamond rings. They got Hollywood to feature diamonds in movies. They even hired lecturers to go to schools and churches to talk about the importance of diamonds for engagements.
So they're basically creating this whole cultural narrative around diamonds and love?
Exact. And then they came up with the genius idea of the 2-month salary rule.
Oh, right, like how much a man should spend on an engagement ring.
Yeah, they made it seem like it was some kind of ancient tradition.
But it was totally made up by De Beers.
Completely.
Yeah.
It was a brilliant marketing ploy. It set a price expectation and made men feel obligated to spend a certain amount.
And it worked.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Before the campaign, less than 10% of American women got diamond engagement rings.
And after.
Over 80% within a couple of decades. It was a massive success.
Wow. And they replicated this in other countries too, right?
Yeah, places like the UK and Japan. They basically created a global diamond craze.
Okay, but let's talk about the elephant in the room here.
The ethical issue.
Yeah, like conflict diamonds and all that.
Right. It's a dark side of the industry that's often overlooked.
Oh, how did that all start?
Well, during World War II, diamonds became really important for industrial use.
Because they're so hard and durable.
Exactly. They were used in cutting tools for weapons and aircraft production.
So De Beers was supplying diamonds to both sides of the conflict.
That's right. It gets even murkier. There's evidence that they might have even supplied diamonds to Nazi Germany through back channels.
Wow, so they weren't exactly on the right side of history.
It seems that their primary concern was always profit, even during a global war.
And then after the war, there's the issue of apartheid in South Africa.
Right. De Beers directly benefited from apartheid. They relied on cheap black labor for their mines.
So they were complicit in a system of racial segregation and oppression.
And they faced a lot of criticism for it, especially as the anti-apartheid movement gained momentum.
So what did they do?
They started investing in mines outside of South Africa to try and distance themselves from the controversy.
But then there were new challenges, right? Like the discovery of diamonds in the Soviet Union?
Exactly. De Beers had to figure out a way to control those diamonds too, or their whole market manipulation scheme would fall apart.
So what did they do?
They made a secret deal with the Soviets. They agreed to buy most of their gem-quality diamonds.
In exchange for what?
Industrial diamonds, which the Soviets needed for their own industries.
So it was like a Cold War diamond trade?
Pretty much. And it's kind of ironic, right? They're selling these diamonds as symbols of love and capitalism in the West.
While secretly funding the Soviet Union.
Exactly. It's a very complex and morally ambiguous situation.
Okay, and then there's the whole issue of conflict diamonds, or blood diamonds, they're often called.
Right. This became a major problem in the late 20th century as many African countries gained independence.
And some of these countries were plagued by civil wars.
And rebel groups started taking control of diamond mines to fund their conflict.
Using forced labor and child soldiers.
It was a horrific situation, and the term blood diamonds really captured the brutality of it all.
So there was a huge international outcry.
Yeah, people were horrified to learn that their diamond rings might be funding violence and human rights abuse.
So what happened?
The UN got involved. They imposed embargoes on diamonds from conflict zones.
And did De Beers cooperate?
At first, they were reluctant, but eventually they realized that they had to do something to protect their image.
So they helped establish the Kimberley process.
Which is basically a certification system to track the origin of diamonds and make sure they're not coming from conflict zones.
But it's not perfect.
Right. No, there's still loopholes, and it doesn't address the issue of human rights abuses in diamond mines that aren't technically in war zones.
So it's a step in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely. And then in the 1950s, a whole new challenge emerged: lab-grown diamonds.
Ooh, yeah, I've heard about those. Are they like real diamonds?
They're chemically identical to natural diamonds.
So what's the difference?
Well, they're created in a lab using controlled processes instead of being mined from the earth.
So they're like ethically sourced diamonds.
Exactly. And they're often cheaper and can even be higher quality than natural diamonds.
So why aren't they more popular?
Well, De Beers has a lot to do with that. When lab-grown diamonds first emerged, they saw it as a major threat.
Because it could disrupt their whole monopoly.
Exactly. They tried to control the market by making deals with companies like General Electric, who were producing lab-grown diamonds for industrial use.
So they were trying to keep them out of the jewelry market.
But eventually, the U.S. government stepped in. They filed antitrust charges against De Beers.
Because they were trying to stifle competition.
Right. And De Beers was found guilty. They had to pay huge fines, and they lost their monopoly in the U.S.
So that was a big blow to them.
It was. And then around the same time, their deal with Russia fell apart after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
So they were losing control on multiple fronts.
And new diamond mines were opening up in Canada and Australia. These mines were marketing themselves as ethical alternative to De Beers.
So the whole landscape of the diamond industry was changing.
Dramatically, De Beers couldn't control the supply anymore.
But they're still a major player, right?
They are, but they had to adapt. They couldn't rely on their old tactics of scarcity and manipulation.
So what did they do?
They shifted their marketing strategy. They started emphasizing the naturalness and uniqueness of mined diamonds.
So it's like they're playing up the flaws now.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
They're saying that these imperfections are what make natural diamonds special and valuable.
It's kind of ironic, right? After years of promoting flawless diamonds.
Totally. But it's a clever way to differentiate themselves from lab-grown.
And it seems to be working because people are still buying natural diamonds even though they know the ethical issues.
It's really fast. It shows how powerful marketing and storytelling can be.
So let's recap here. The whole idea of diamonds being rare and valuable, it's largely a myth.
It's a myth that was created and perpetuated by De Beers for over a century.
They controlled the supply, they manipulated the market, and they created this whole cultural narrative around diamonds and love.
And they were incredibly successful at it. They built a multi-billion-dollar industry on a carefully constructed lie.
And that's the big takeaway here. The diamond industry is not what it's.
It's a story of power, greed, and manipulation.
But it's also a story of human desire and our willingness to believe in things that make us feel good.
Right, we want to believe in love and romance, and the idea that a diamond can symbolize those things.
So even though we know the truth about the industry, we're still drawn to diamonds.
It's a powerful example of how our emotions can override our logic.
And it makes you wonder what other things we believe in that might not be entirely true.
Right. What other stories have we been told that have shaped our values and our desire?
It's definitely something about.
It is. And it's a reminder to be critical of the information we consume.
To question the narratives that we're presented with.
And to do our own research to uncover the truth.
Exactly. Because sometimes the most beautiful things are built on the ugliest foundation.
And that's something we should never forget.
Well said. So that's our deep dive on diamonds, folks. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a fascinating journey.
Until next time, keep questioning everything.